Why do broke folks love billionaires so much more than they love themselves? I mean it. Like, some of you are out here defending rich people like you're on their unpaid security detail. Meanwhile, rich people wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. This country sold you a fantasy that if you grind hard enough, you too could be sitting on a yacht sipping champagne. So now you treat being broke like it's a temporary condition. And you're not mad at inequality. You're just mad it hasn't worked in your favor yet. You think you're one lucky break from becoming a millionaire, so you act like a millionaire in training. But here's the thing. Rich people do not think like that. They're not sitting around dreaming of being working class. They're not building policies to make your life better. In fact, they're the ones that fund the policies that make your life harder. So you keep laying down the red carpet for the wealthy like they're going to turn around and invite you in. Newsflash, baby. They're locking the door behind them and raising the price of entry. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Why do people love people who wouldn't even look your way if they saw you struggling?
So Bernie Sanders and a lot of different voices on the left are warning that the U.S. is becoming an oligarchy. We are moving rapidly into an oligarchic form of society. And if you don't know what an oligarchy is, it's when billionaires run the entire government. An oligarchy is a small group of people having control over an entire country, organization, or institution. Donald Trump himself is a billionaire. Elon Musk is a billionaire. Vivek is a billionaire. Our next Treasury Secretary, a millionaire. Our Commerce Secretary, a billionaire. Our Department of Education Secretary is a billionaire. All of these, our ambassadors are billionaires. Our Social Security billionaires, small business, all billionaires. And if you expect an administration that is ran by billionaires, you cannot become a billionaire by caring about people who are in the middle class without taking advantage of poor people. And so if you expect a government run by billionaires to create policies that support you as a working person, just take a look at this list and see the incoming billionaires and tell me that we do not have an oligarchy.
Very rich become much richer. 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured in terms of health care. 25% of our seniors in this country are trying to survive on $15,000 a year or less. 800,000 Americans are homeless, and we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And real inflation-adjusted wages for the average American worker has not gone up in 50 years.
Most people have been subtly programmed to defend billionaires through years of psychological conditioning rooted in media, culture, and the American dream myth. From childhood, we are taught that wealth equals intelligence, hard work, and moral superiority. So questioning billionaires feels like questioning success itself. This belief is reinforced by movies, advertisements, and news stories that glorify the ultra-rich as visionaries, while hiding how much of their wealth comes from exploiting loopholes, cheap labor, and political influence. Psychologists call this system justification theory, the tendency to defend and rationalize unfair systems because it feels safer than admitting exploitation exists. Add to this parasocial relationships where people emotionally connect to celebrity billionaires as if they are friends, and you get a public ready to defend individuals who would never defend them back. This conditioning convinces the average worker that someday they could join the ranks of the rich, making them protect a system that is designed to keep them out. It is not in the people's best interest to defend billionaires because these individuals routinely bet against society's well-being to maximize profits. Billionaires resist higher minimum wages because paying workers fairly cuts into their margins, and they benefit from high unemployment since desperate workers will accept lower pay and worse conditions. They lobby governments to keep taxes on wealth low, even though those taxes could fund healthcare, housing, and education for the majority. To billionaires, widespread comfort is dangerous. If people are financially secure, They won't overwork, won't tolerate abusive conditions, and won't drive profits through relentless productivity. By keeping wages stagnant and uncertainty high, billionaires preserve their control. History shows again and again, from the Gilded Age to modern tech monopolies, that when billionaires grow richer, it's almost always at the direct expense of the public. Defending them, therefore, is like defending the very system that ensures most people will never escape financial struggle.
We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50% in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
This is Tim Gurner, an Australian property developer, saying out loud what most billionaires quietly believe, that ordinary people need to feel pain through higher unemployment so they can be forced into obedience. Psychologically, this reveals the deep arrogance of the elite. They view human beings not as equals, but as replaceable tools whose suffering is necessary to maintain control. It exposes a mindset rooted in dehumanization, where workers aren't seen as people with families and dreams, but as cost units to be manipulated. His words also reflect social dominance orientation, a psychology term for those who believe hierarchies are natural and the rich deserve to rule over the poor. The chilling part is how casually he says it, as if it's common sense that millions must lose their livelihoods just to keep wages low and wealth concentrated at the top. This arrogance is exactly why defending billionaires is self-destructive. They do not see the public as partners in prosperity, but as obstacles to discipline and exploit.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Why are America's richest men all preparing for the downfall of society? Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI, has openly said that he is preparing for the collapse of society. He's admitted to stockpiling guns, gold, gas, antibiotics, and has an underground bunker. Zuckerberg owns over 2,000 acres in Hawaii and basically has his own compound, which includes a 5,000 square foot underground bunker complete with blast-resistant doors. Peter Thiel, mentor to JD Vance and former PayPal founder, has his own underground bunker and a private farm. These are some of America's richest and most powerful men, so what do they know that the rest of us don't? Funny enough, New Zealand is a popular spot for billionaires to buy citizenship because they think they can retreat there when the world ends.
Do they tell you why they're building bunkers when they build them?
Most of the time they do. It's just like everyone else. They look at what's going on in the world around them, and just because you have billions of dollars doesn't mean you're not connected to what's really happening. And a lot of times maybe you're more connected, but they're just looking for safety and security for their family and their loved ones.
Are they worried about, like that woman was saying, people storming the castle?
I mean, I guess in a sense, yes. Because I mean, look at the looting that was just on a few minutes ago. The smash and grabs. That's going to be a reality when there's no food in the grocery stores. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to other people's cupboards. I think it's like an insurance policy. I believe that some of them know that someday they'll need it, and some of them are buying it just as insurance.
When you build these, what's the must-have with the billionaire bunker that everyone needs to have this one thing?
Typically theaters for personal entertainment. Libraries are really common. With the billionaire bunkers, you don't see much self-sustaining type things like no hydroponics or gardens, things like that. It's more about storage and comfort. Bowling alley, swimming pools, saunas, shooting ranges.
There's this article about billionaire bunkers written by a guy who is a consultant for ultra-wealthy people that want to prepare for the apocalypse, and it describes the questions they ask him. It's published in The Guardian a few years back by Douglas Rushkoff. And there's questions like, what materials should I use for my bunker? Where should I build my bunker? Should it have like its own air supply? What kind of food should I stock it with? But the biggest question that people are most sort of like vexed about is, how do I maintain control over my security force after the event? After there's a nuclear war, after there's a climate apocalypse, these billionaires are like, how am I going to get people to follow my orders? If there's no government and there's like no economy anymore, then like money won't matter. Laws won't matter because who's going to enforce them? It's just me and the people in the bunker. And so how do I prevent them from like rising up against me? And I think that reflects an important truth about the way people are conceiving of the world right now, especially powerful people, because it's not a sure thing that we'll be living in a post-apocalyptic kind of situation. But I think no matter what, we'll be living in a kind of a post-institutional moment where consequences, governments, economies, as they've been set up for years, simply won't work the way they used to. And the stuff that's going to be the foundation of power will be like, who controls the AI, who controls the supply of water, who gets to make the content moderation decisions, who gets to juice the algorithm or dim the algorithm on a certain topic. And one thing I wonder is, as the shape of power shifts, is that an opportunity for new kinds of structures to be made, for maybe like some revolutionary moment to take place? I'm glad that the billionaires are worried about, what's going to happen once this world ends, that their biggest concern is actually how to control us, because that means that they aren't sure how they're going to keep doing it, which is a good thing.
I was invited to do what I thought was a talk to like bankers or something at a resort. And instead of me going out on stage to do a talk, they brought these 5 guys into the green room who started peppering me with all these questions about the digital future, Bitcoin or Ethereum and augmented reality or virtual reality. I figured it was one of these things where it's just these 5 billionaires looking for, investment strategies from someone who's on the ground in the cyber revolution. And eventually they got around to the question of, Alaska or New Zealand. Right? So they wanted to know mainly how to prepare for the inevitable collapse of society. And the question we spent most of the time on was, how do I maintain control of my security force after the event? Because their money's going to be worthless and these guys will turn on them. And it just struck me that here are the wealthiest and most powerful men I've ever encountered, yet they feel utterly powerless to influence the digital future, that the best they can do is prepare for the inevitable collapse and, insulate themselves from the reality that they're creating by earning money in the way they're earning it. And it was sad, but it was indicative of the way these folks are thinking. The high-level billionaires, like the Elon Musks and Jeff Bezos, they want to get off the planet altogether, really just leave us behind. But the mid-level billionaires who can't afford rocket ships, they want to build, bunkers and secret communities and get robot guards and to protect themselves from the rest of us.